It's going. All right. We are live. This is so much fun. Hi, everyone. I don't know. We don't have any viewers right now, but that's okay. I just want to say this is one of the highlights of my week.
Me too.
I look so forward to these shows with you ladies. It is like a true treasure to be here with you.
Well, thank you, Dara, for making them happen and for your engineering genius, your programming genius, your educational drive, and your clever ideas and topics.
I just had a Facebook page that needed something to do. So it worked out really well for all of us, didn't it? Thank you.
Yeah.
So tonight, I'd like to welcome everybody who's here for future viewings. We are the Pet Pro Educators, and this is the Groomer's Cut, Mondays live at 7:30. So welcome to everyone who's joined us. Recap from last week, we had... we talked about our favorite things. We had a really fun show with that. And if you missed it, I did post that in the Facebook group that we did have all of our favorite things were listed. So I posted all of those for everyone.
Yes. I have a retraction and a point that I have to fix.
Okay.
My comb that is in the picture is not a fresh comb. It is a Jersey Pets comb. It's an Olga comb.
Yeah.
So I don't know how I got that mixed up. It's as lightweight as the fresh combs, but I was gifted it by someone, and for some reason in my mind it was put together as a fresh comb. So it is a Jersey Pets aluminum lightweight comb.
So I will go fix that on there for us. All right.
That's great.
So, any new viewers tonight, just to give you a heads up, when you come on to our show, please click if you're on Facebook and allow Facebook grant you permission so that we can see your name. On our end, we just see Facebook user. We don't get to see your name, so we'd love to have a name with your comments as you're going. You'll only have to do that once if you tune in, so just please do that. And
hi, Terry.
Yes,
hi,
Terry.
Lisa.
Terry and I were messaging all afternoon this afternoon, so that was kind of fun.
And
we were talking about evolutions. Yes, we were.
And Lisa Herbold is on my Illinois Professional Pet Groomers Association Board of Directors. Many years as a vet tech, super great science resource. Lisa is. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, before we get started, I want to give everyone a heads up. August 10th. A day with Dara. Sounds so much fun, right? Everybody wants to do this. Business. We're doing a business. It's hosted by Precision Sharp Presents, and Cheryl and Randy asked me to do a day-long business program. It's a Monday, but you can watch it. It's $75 to get into the 4 programs or the 4 classes that I'm doing, and I think you have up to 2 weeks to watch them. So Precision Sharp Presents. Look for them on Facebook, and that is August 10th. And also, I'm going to plug for all 3 of us. We are all speaking this year at the All-American Virtual Trade Show. That is August 13th through the 16th. So hopefully you guys can join us on that as well. Tonight, we are here to talk about how do we talk with our peers? How do we discuss things on Facebook? How are we talking amongst ourselves? So I am going to let Jennifer and Michelle, actually, Michelle, this was your brainchild. I'm going to let you take it away.
All right. So I noticed, and everybody notices, that when we talk to one another on social media platforms, it tends to digress into some kind of a weird argument and talking points that have nothing to do with the original discussion. And I thought it would be good to really talk about how to communicate properly, and in saying properly, how to communicate to where you get to the end of your point, so that you either agree, disagree, or agree to disagree without hurting the relationship. That's really the most important part. The 3 of us here have very different views on several different subjects. That doesn't make me love them any less. I love them as whole and complete women who get to speak their mind and think what they want. And if I say something really radical, they will absolutely say, oh, wait a minute, that sounds really radical. I'm either going to have to support that with facts and science or a feeling, however I do that. And they can either agree, disagree, or take pieces of what I believe into themselves and then make it their own. This is the whole point of communication. Communication is not to bandy back and forth to see who's right or who's smarter or who's better or who has more experience or who knows this and knows someone else or name drops or calls names or whatever. And I think that sometimes we just see that circle into this tornado of viciousness instead of exchanging the information that the original poster wanted to post. Sometimes a simple question, hey, who has the best slicker, can devolve into this argument about, well, I don't even use brushes. You know, the original poster simply wanted to know, hey, what do you guys use for a brush? What do you use for a slicker? So we should just say, oh, I use the CC Coral. I use the whatever. I use Oscar Frank. And then it should just stay right there instead of saying, oh, well, you're stupid for using that brush. We have to stop attacking one another in our communiques. And I think that will help us come together. If we're working on coming together, making standards, uplifting our industry, uplifting the women and the gentlemen in our industry and making them feel whole, then we absolutely want to watch what we say. One of the main things that I wanted to impress upon people is that I have a very strong marriage. We just celebrated our 28th year.
Aww.
It's not always like that. Before you clap, if people meet us now, they're like, oh my gosh, you guys are so in love. How do you do it?
Yeah.
Well, through learning how to communicate with each other. I treat him like he is my best friend because he is. Not just because I'm treating him like a best friend. He is my best friend in my life, in the world. And however you treat your best friend should mean that they want to treat you that way as well. So after we learned that, we've had plenty of fights. We had some knockdown dragouts. I've had a table flipped or two. But we got there. The point is that we got there. We learned how to communicate properly with each other. As not because I don't want to piss him off. He doesn't want to piss me off. So you have to learn how you communicate. Make your communication very concise. Mean exactly what you say and say exactly what you mean. That way, the idea is out there, and the idea is what we're arguing about or having a discussion about, not the other person. If I'm mad at you, Jennifer, or I don't agree with something you say, I'm not going to comment on your hair or your skin color or your weight or your sex. That's ridiculous. We're going to discuss our idea because I already love you just the way you are. But it's the idea maybe that we both don't have a good grasp on. Maybe neither one of us know what that idea is in its final form. So if you treat each other like you're treating a friend, because every single groomer, even if you don't care for me, I love you simply because you're a groomer. That gets your foot in the door. I know what it takes to walk that path. And you have my whole heart, even if we don't get along.
Yeah.
So if you enter into a communication or a discussion with that in mind, with a baseline of, you know what, I love all of you already. I may not agree with you, but I'm going to love all of you now, and I'm going to love all of you when it's all ended. So that's my two-piece for the introduction.
Yeah. Well, and we have, if you remember the old rule, if you can't say anything nice, don't say it at all. That is true.
Got some very good comments from
That is
Lisa
so
and Angie
true.
and everybody.
I know. I'm
And,
going to show Angie's here. The
Yeah.
problem we have is that many can't deal.
So I just want to
I think that goes
underline.
across the board, Angie.
Yes. And I taught high school English for 30 years, and I know I teach young people about communication, writing, reading, writing, and speaking. And one of the biggest problems and we're all old enough, the three of us are old enough to remember a time when there was no social media by which to talk to people. And we really did learn better how to communicate, because part of what you're doing when you're in person talking to somebody is you're giving physical social cues. You're listening, you're showing body postures, you're showing facial expressions. There's a totality of how we communicate to each other in human contact, which is why, and this drives my staff nuts, but it's why I will not have a complicated conversation about, some employee issue via text. All of my under 30 staff, they all want to do these big, I'm going to resign, I'm going elsewhere, I'm, tired of this, or I'm going to cause drama about that. They want to do all these things via text. And I'm like, nope, nope, we're not having that kind of a conversation, because I want the facial, I will see you tomorrow at work at 8:00. We'll have this conversation. Sometimes you just have to do a difficult conversation in person. But that said, the whole thing about social media bringing together the grooming community, this is a great gift. I do remember, we are all of us old enough to remember, a time when grooming, we didn't have magazines, conferences, trade shows, online gatherings, social media to talk to each other. It is such a gift to be able to go on to a Facebook group. There are many of them, and say, hey, what's the better way to do this? Or just the learning and the growing that can happen. It's great. But if we're not careful, because we don't have that inhuman, in-person, in face-to-face contact, normal social cues with each other in terms of how we listen and our body postures, and all of the ways that we read each other's humanity in our faces when we're looking at each other. If we're just typing out words on a computer, it is cold, it is harsh, it is quick to judge, it is quick to take offense. It's just a very, very different world. So I always give a couple of rules when I do my talk about in the 15 coat types training about shaving double coats and how it's really not a good idea. But how do you have that conversation when there are so many people that do shave double-coated dogs? How do you have that conversation? And a couple of things. Number one, always use I messaging. Don't say you this and, they that, and, get into what other people do. Say, well, here's what I do and why, and just talk about yourself. Because you can talk about yourself. You can always talk about yourself. And that doesn't come off in a hurtful way. You can say, here's what I do and here's why. And that's just putting it out there that that's what you do. And that doesn't automatically become what you were actually describing, Michelle, was what we English teachers used to call a ad hominem attack, where you're talking about the person.
Yes.
Ad hominem means in Latin to the man, to the person. So, when people start saying, well, you do this and you're bad at that, and, you're dumb and you're ignorant and you're whatever, people do get really, especially young people, I've noticed, I'm sorry, I think it's because you've been raised without the, as much in-person communication as we have. And I just think that you got to stick iMessages. And then the other thing I always emphasize is separate fact from opinion. This is my opinion. This has been my experience using iMessaging. But if you've got somebody says, well, what's the science behind that? And I can pull out a study. I can say, well, here is a study on the subject, and you've got some science there. Grooming is both. It's art and science. Yes. And because it's both art and science, there's part of it that, we want to say, this is the best practice based on the science, and it can change. The science can change. It is changing. The science on anal glands and ear cleaning procedures, it's all changed a lot in the 35, 40 years, that I've been grooming off and on. So the science can change, but, you should stick with the science. That's at least something that you can say, hey, here's some information. But the art of it, art is art, and everybody's art is personal. And the creative side of grooming, I would never say, well, the way you styled that leg is not as good as the way I don't even go there. That's your art. This is my art, whatever. So iMessaging, separating fact from opinion, separating art from science. But I also think finally it's important for us to speak our truth and to not be afraid to help lead evolution where evolution is called for, and in a way that doesn't attack personally. So that's my 2 cents.
Mm-hmm. I think it's also important when you find someone. Lisa says another problem is a person can act out or call names or only use disparaging language, and many consider that person to be ahead of the game or top of their field or whatever. When you find a person, when you find a person that you're engaging with somehow that reduces the conversation down to ad hominems, reduces it down to disparaging remarks, or, well, you must be stupid then because I've never heard of that, or whatever, just simply walk away. Just say, oh, thank you for your time, and disengage, because that is not productive, other than if you just want to hurt your cellular water. If you want hurt feelings and you need something to cry about that night, you just go right ahead and participate. But I don't have time in my life for that. If I'm speaking to a person that asked me a question or asks generally a question, and I'm like, oh, I have an answer for that, I'll type it in and say, well, this is how I usually handle it, and blah, 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 and this is why. And then I'll just back away. If they engage me more, hey, that sounds interesting. I want to know more about that. Then we'll have a discussion. But if they hit me hard, oh, that's stupid. I've been doing it like this for forever. That's dumb. That doesn't even make any sense. I'm like, okay, thank you for your time. Just disengage, because it doesn't make any sense to anyone. And it's not productive in the post itself. For people to see somebody argue. They're just going and making popcorn so they can see the drama.
Yeah.
Yes, that is good. Yeah, and Lisa said, funny story, Jennifer. I did use I. I'm just going to show it.
Yeah. She used I statements and was
accused of everything about me. That I could totally see that happening to me.
But on the other hand, if you use iMessaging, you really can't go wrong, because you're only speaking for yourself. And, the things that people get upset about, and the freedom with which, I'm sorry, folks, this is a younger person problem, the freedom by which young people will put out just awful language and things that they would never say in person. I know some of these people, they say horrible things on social media.
I think you're getting there. That's the key to it, is people can hide behind their social media because they don't have to be held accountable for it. And if it comes down to, I'm going to show, here's your other one, arguing someone you don't know. I mean, oh, look at me. I didn't even spell it right either.
For what reason?
But
to what end? To be right? I don't care if I'm wrong. Yeah. Oftentimes, when I find that I'm wrong, I learn something new. I'm not afraid to be wrong. But what I am afraid of is just being accused or argued with without ever feeling I got my point across. But in order to do that, I can post on my page. I can post on someone else's page that, hey, I found out this new technique. Does everybody here want to try it out? Get back to me, or whatever, if that's how you want to put your new message out or whatever. It's never a matter of arguing with anyone for any reason, because it doesn't lead to a good place. Arguments will never lead to solutions. Only a calm discussion with logic and reason will get to a solution, or a possible solution, or a possible several solutions. So,
yeah.
Well, and Michelle, say what you were saying before we went on the air about taking it to private message. That's another good option. Yeah, that's a good point.
If we are at a level, and this goes for any level you are in the industry or in your career, but there are oftentimes comes when you have a higher echelon of colleague and you find an error in their science, or they're saying something that's not scientifically based. So you feel like, oh, can I put a little correction in there? Oh, that's not right. So you, on their post, you go in and say, that's not right. The science behind it is this, me. So then you just look like a mealy mouth. You look like a little know-it-all telling the teacher on somebody, rather than completely go into their post and say, hey, I don't think that's right. Why don't you try a PM and say, hey, I'd like to talk about the science of what you were saying in your post. Can we talk about that and hash it out? I just want to find out where you are, because I know these scientific things over here that, kind of negate what you're saying. So can you help me understand? Taking it to a private message or to a direct message is the best way to save face for both parties and not have any party feel like they're attacked. That's really important as we go into making the council, making standards of care. We're going to have to debate some very serious issues that some people get really fired up about. So we have to learn with our mouth not to let words come out that muddy the waters, or pinpoint somebody or make somebody feel attacked. You know, if you feel like I should never shave a double coat, Jennifer, I'm going to say there's probably times when you have to. 9 times
I say that there's times that you have to too. So.
Absolutely. But do you see how that worked just now?
Yeah.
You see how that was? You're like, oh, I didn't say that. I sometimes.
Yeah.
So just those little things sometimes can lead to distress because we're talking with each other in text form. You don't know the nuances of my voice. People who have never actually talked to me in person or met me in person, I'll throw in a science little factoid like, oh, da-da-da-da-da. If you've never met me, some of those can be misinterpreted as, oh, she just inserted that like I had an attitude behind it. But really, people who know me and who've talked to me or have been in my classes understand completely what I'm saying. And 9 times out of 10, they'll come up right behind me and say, oh, no, she didn't mean it like that. She was just saying. You know what I mean? You just have to, you have to be really careful about how you word things, that they are furthering the discussion and not attacking someone personally, race, religion, creed, politics, whatever.
That's so important. And I love what Lisa said. Put that up. That's great.
That, yep.
So that Lisa Herbold says that, that secure people are not afraid to learn new things from anybody. And that's a really great truth, and people that are more comfortable with themselves in the world and more comfortable with diverse points of view. And sometimes two things can be true, things don't always have to only have one angle or one side to them.
Or they can be true because they can both be true because you're in a different climate. I can't tell you how many different climates I've been through, and I've had to completely redo my approach to some technique because of the climate. It's colder there, it's drier there, it's more humid there. The way their shop is set up, it takes the humidity doesn't escape the shop as much. So that is a microclimate that needs very direct techniques for that climate. So in learning what I do, I've had to absolutely adjust for every possibility. So the science itself can be manipulated to the different climates. So yes, different techniques can be true, even if you use them differently.
Yeah.
Wow. Hey, Angie, where'd you hear Scott say that? Sorry.
She said, Scott Wasserman at Whole Pet Academy, New Hampshire, said the very same thing. He said he always watches demos because he can learn something from anyone, regardless of how long they've been grooming. I thought that was awesome. Yeah,
he said that over. I think that was over dinner, wasn't it?
And it is not surprising at all that you have somebody like Scott Wasserman who has, he's a great example of this because he got Speaker of the Year one year for Barkley a couple of years ago. He's incredibly funny. He's got a great sense of humor, hysterical sense of humor. But he also is a man of he's, one of the greatest terrier experts in the history of grooming and certainly of showing and breeding terriers. We
found out that he started hand stripping terriers when he was 10 years old.
Yeah, he's like super.
Having talked to him extensively, he is one of the handful of other instructors and other greats in our industry that really impresses me. He's very adaptable and he's adamant about technique, but he's willing to listen. If you have something that will change that technique or if you have questions, he answers them thoroughly and without malice. And I think for a teacher, you cannot ask more than that. He's gentle and funny and educational all at the same time. What a joy it was to spend some time with him. Absolutely.
And I think he's a good example to me of, he's a good example to me of somebody that will stand his ground on something that is, a matter of just clearly right and wrong to him. He's not against standing up for an opinion. Let me just give you an example. He talks about wasting conditioner. If you've got a dog with hair and you're using conditioner, I remember him making a big point about this. Why would you rinse all of the conditioner out? Why not leave a little bit in there to continue to work well on the coat? And, and it's just a matter of throwing money away if you don't. If you're rinsing all that immediately down the drain, he was making a point that that's a waste of money. And he just handled the argument so well. He kind of teased people a little bit about, you like flushing money down the sink, and But he also, stood his ground, but he also explained why it, made sense. And he handled it with such great humor. So that's a great example. But he was doing all of that in person, in a workshop where you've got body language and you've got human contact, and you can do that better. Social media, you can't do stuff like that. You have to remember that your words that you type in black and white there's no emotion around them. You have to put the emotion in the words, otherwise it's not there. And then people just think you're cold.
And I think also it maybe not even come like that, but everybody's going to see it different depending on how they're feeling in that moment.
Absolutely.
So you might interpret it as something completely different than what Jennifer would read, because if I'm having a bad day and you're having a great day, you might not take offense to it at all. But just because I'm in a bad mood or a bad day, those three little words might push me over the border and piss me off so much. So
some of the worst confrontations I've gotten into on social media are because I am a Pollyanna. I am very positive. Everything I say, I put a positive twist on it. And some people are not ready for that. And I understand. We are not all in the same place at the same time. And I apologize. You know who you are, and I love you. I'm glad that we recovered. But wow. And I've got to be careful to tone my happiness down, because I am super positive and I will see the positive side of everything. So I'm like, okay, yeah, you can make it to the top. They're like, I've got 2 broken legs. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. So I can't help it.
The world needs more Pollyannas. I'm a Pollyanna too. And for those of you that haven't read the book, The Great American Novel, Pollyanna, you must. It's the young lady who finds something glad in everything in the world to be glad about.
They made a movie of her, didn't they?
Yeah, read the book. Read the book. No
the
movies.
Books are always better. Books are always
Disney
better.
movie. No, don't read the book. Yeah. Sure.
So, we're at 27 minutes. We're doing good. Anything else?
Yes.
Where else we want to go? I wrote down all of our stuff here, and.
Well, I think that the main thing is to take this and connect this back to our larger, the council effort, and maybe we could close with Michelle giving us an update on the National Groomers Council. But that is exactly that's why this is a great topic, because we are going to be tackling controversial issues, and the whole point of that council, whoever's on it, is that it's going to be a diverse group of people, and they're going to have science, and they're going to have opinion. And I'm going to do it really quick. I forgot one other thing that I used to teach people when I was a social studies teacher. I would teach about how to detect opinion, separating fact from opinion. And it's an exercise I called EOIOC, which stood for exaggeration, overgeneralization, opinion as fact, imbalance, opinion as fact, and charged words. So those 5 things you would want to avoid in communication: exaggerating, opinion as fact, imbalance, too much, not seeing all sides of things, and overgeneralizing, and using charged words that are provocative words, that are emotional pinpoint words. So that's another good set of guidelines when you talk to people, not to do that.
Yeah, I think that's all good stuff. So here's the update with the council nominees. I am still receiving some, but not really a whole lot. So if you nominated someone, try to get a hold of them and have them get back to me. If you still want to nominate someone, I will send them a letter. We're going to give it 1 more week, and then we're going to go with the people that we have. And then if other people would like to join, we will be having hopefully a council of 9, and then there will be subcommittees to gather pros and cons on each issue. So many people are needed for this to happen. As many voices as possible are necessary, because I would like every voice to be represented.
Could we post in the Pet Pro Educators Facebook group, could we post who we have reached out to and not heard back from? Is that unfair to do that? Okay.
I can
maybe it
compile.
would help us to get the word out to people that we're trying to reach them. Like if there's been somebody that's been nominated and you've tried to reach them, Michelle, and they haven't responded, should we post that list of names? Here's who we're trying to get a hold of. Does anybody know how to get a hold of these people?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do that.
Okay, I'll compile that and have it ready by probably tomorrow evening, and we'll post it at that time. So we do have our base enough for a base council and a subcommittee, but I really would like to hear from everybody nominated. Even if they don't have time to participate, just say, hey, I hate that idea. I'm not going to participate. Just something, and we'll take you off the list if that's what you want. So just get a hold of everybody that you've nominated, or get a hold of everybody that you know that may be good for the council or the subcommittees, and have them get a hold of us so we can send them a letter.
Can you say we said 9 for the committee?
Mm-hmm.
So we've got at least 9
applications
back in.
Okay.
Yeah, hold on, I'll tell you how many we got. We've got.
And by the way, while you're looking, I'm going to come. I love the comments we're getting. Angie says that it's great to avoid absolutes in a conversation. Excellent point, Angie. Lisa Herbold says that she likes to put a positive spin, but also prepare for, the conflict. Yeah. And using always and never, Angie. Absolutely. That's great. Very good. That's kind of like my EOIOC thing.
Mm-hmm. There's always going to be an exception.
Right.
Like that.
Right.
Using an absolute in the correct way.
Yeah.
So we've got 12.
Okay.
We've got 12, and I will post who those 12 that have gotten back to me and are interested. And then the rest, I am still waiting on their feedback. Now, I'm still awaiting on a lot of their feedback. I don't think they know how quickly this is going to go once we form a council, but there will always be voting opportunities. I think there will always be movement within the 9 and the subcommittees, and that's fine. So maybe you're on the subcommittee this quarter, and then next quarter you're on the actual voting and debating committee. Or the council. So, I want lots of movement because I want as many voices as possible. Okay? So just everybody, bring it in, tell your people, get their applications in. We want to review their certifications, and we want to have time to form everything and then send everybody ground rules of debate. We'll be using Oxford debate, mediation rules, and the ground rules of argument. Those 3 things will be the ground rules of how we discuss and maintain order within our council.
Excellent.
Okay. Lisa said, can't wait. This will be
epic.
Yes, it
is. Yep. All right. Well, thank everyone for joining this evening. Remember, we will be back next week, 7:30. We'll have our names up, and I think next week is the 10th. Last plug at me. A Day with Dara. You don't want to miss it, guys.
It's next Sunday, right? It's next Sunday.
Monday. I'm doing it on Monday.
Oh, during the day of the night of our broadcast. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
All
right. I might be hoarse after, but we'll see.
Okay. No, that's amazing. A Day with Dara, you guys. If you own your own business, don't miss this.
Or you want to be a business owner. This is good for that too. It's not just business owners, it's future business owners. I'm going to give you the down and dirty.
Yeah, if you own a business and are looking for an exit strategy, this is for you.
Yep. So, all right. Have a great week, everyone. Happy grooming from us Pet Pro educators, the Groomers Cut, and we'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.
Thank you, Dara. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Terry and Lisa and Ann.